Let's start off with a short summary of what Boenicke actually is. Do I pronounce it correctly, by the way?
Yeah, that's super good.
So when did it start, and why did you start a hi-fi company?
Oh, it's the founding of the company started in 1998, so a quarter of a century ago.
25 years now.
Yes. Why? Back then I certainly actually did not know why. Well, actually, the founding of the company allowed me to buy things, components at a professional discount rate.
Yeah.
That was probably the honest answer. And if I back then would have known that it would grow into something worthwhile, to put it that way, I could not foresee that at all. I still remember as a teenager, when I bought those hi-fi magazines, Image Hi-Fi, the German Image Hi-Fi, for example, it already existed back then, with those super nice high gloss pictures on the front page and so on.
Yeah.
And, I thought all of these manufacturers and brands that appear in such magazines, they're like half gods,
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Which they probably are, but I never thought I would ever be on such a front page.
And now you're on a glossy front page of magazines.
It happened already.
Yeah. How does that feel?
Yeah, I'm very grateful for that, because it needs recognition by the party that does the publication.
Yeah.
And it just reminded me of what I just said when I went, memorized back in the day when I was 14.
Yeah.
When I thought, how cool is that to be on a front page? Just thinking back, and then that's kind of fascinating. Yeah.
So you started in 1998. I think I saw 1999 for the first product on your website around that time. Could it be correct?
The company was actually in the trade register. That was 98, and the first product, I think that came a little later.
Yeah.
But I'm not good at archiving.
No, it doesn't matter. So it's around 25 years old now.
Yeah.
What actually differentiates Boenicke from other companies? Because there are so many brands in the hi-fi industry. I don't know how many, but way too many, if we're honest. So you have to have something different in order to stand out and differentiate yourself from other loudspeaker companies in this case.
Yeah, that's right. It's the so-called USP.
Yes.
What is your unique selling proposal?
Yeah. And not a lot of companies have a good answer on that.
Yep. It might be an unexpected answer, but because I knew that I don't know much about all this. For example, I'm really bad at maths. So I totally bad. So I knew that at least coming from that perspective, I could not, think things through in the same way as probably others do, or do an education in physics. I mean, I have a good basic understanding and like gut feeling for physics and statics, and oscillation mechanics and so on.
Yeah.
But I could never have passed like a university in one of those topics where you have to be able to derive a lot with mathematical terms.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Yeah.
So that forced me to really just try out things in reality.
Learning from practice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And since about in the same period of time back then, I also started to make recordings myself.
Yeah, I read about that.
Yes, that gave me quite a good combination between knowing what the real sound is in the actual sound field. So not being a recording engineer that sits in on the controlling desk and just hears the monitors, because then he knows how the monitors sound, which is not necessarily what's happening out there in the sound field. Yep. So I spent a lot of hours, and that's also the slogan on the website when you're on the starting page. I've spent a lot of hours recording live music, and I can memorize sounds quite accurately. That's just a gift.
But if I'm really critical now, there are a lot of people that make good recordings. Jared Sachs, for example, is a good recording engineer, but he doesn't create loudspeakers.
Yep.
So if you're able to make good recordings and know how instruments sounds, you can actually tune a loudspeaker, but not design one. So those are two different skills.
Yeah, but if the guy you just mentioned, for some reason, felt that he also is interested in creating loudspeakers, he probably as well would have been able, to grow himself into building loudspeakers, because I assume he was not as bad in maths as I was. Without knowing him, it's almost impossible to be as bad. I think it might sound a bit esoterical, but it was really my sole plan to be like an intermediary between those who make music and record it, and to those people who at home want a reproduction that really, as well as possible, transports them back in time and space. Yeah,
you must have very accurate hearing then.
I can memorize especially colors of sound, so the timbre. Timbre.
Yeah, timbre like that. Yeah.
I can memorize that quite accurately by memorizing an according color. So I actually see the color, and I can sort of store that image that I see. And then when I play it back and I see a different image, then I know, okay, there is still work to do. And
that's how you tune your products?
Mostly.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I'm also open-minded enough to work with other people. I have a lot of partners with whom I work, partners that are in their respective area absolute world class.
Yeah.
So in my products you get a lot of actually inconspicuous ingredients. Resonators. Okay, what's a resonator?
Yeah.
If you look at them, it doesn't look like anything important, but they are. And I'm not the one making those. So
no.
Just for example, no, that's.
But for our viewers, Boenicke is from Switzerland, and we did a road trip through Switzerland to visit hi-fi producers there. And what struck me, and now you mentioned it again, you work with other people. That's very Swiss, I think.
Yes, whenever I have the choice to source something locally, I try to do that. Yeah. But interestingly enough, quite a lot of things are custom made for us, and I would not find those people delivering me what I really want in Switzerland.
Okay.
Or also not in Europe. So even in these big speakers, like the voice coil in here, which I use, it's made in China, on spec.
Wow.
Because there I found the guys who do that, what I want. Nowhere else.
It's that hard, or is it what makes it so special then, that it's not possible to do that in Europe or Switzerland?
I didn't find anyone in Europe. I mean, I'm not saying that there is no one, but I didn't find someone who himself would not also have it actually made in the Far East. So this is the voice coil former. So that's the cylindric tube on which the wire of the voice coil is actually wound on. That cylindrical tube is made out of a special paper. and it just sounds the best. And in my opinion, the second best then is titanium, and then Nomex, and on the end aluminum, which are mostly others are using.
It does color the sound.
It absolutely does, and it is the very origin of the sound is the voice coil former that actually propagates the kinetic motion onto the whole diaphragm. And if you have some material dependent filtering in there, which you have in all materials, then you have just those filtering properties, filtering / coloration properties on the diaphragm. There's no way around it.
But did you find this by accident, just by trying different materials, or did you have already some sort of philosophy about it? Because it's something. What strikes me is that we've heard this loudspeaker before this interview, and it's really dynamic and it has a lot of energy, and it feels very fast. Mm-hmm. And what strikes me is that a lot of big loudspeaker companies, they have all the R&D centers in the world, and they still come with mostly aluminum voice coil formers. They must know. I guess.
No, I don't think they know, because there is actually, not in my understanding, there is no recording equipment or no test equipment or no analysis equipment that can actually tell you what it takes so that our ear-brain complex actually creates the sensation of acoustic beauty.
Yeah,
that's something that's something very, very human, and it's been evolving through millions and millions of years. As we talked before, a measuring mic is far away from our hearing ear-brain complex.
Yeah, it's definitely
something very different.
Yeah.
And I'm glad about that, because otherwise we, as a small company with an R&D budget which is nowhere near around what Bowers & Wilkins has, for example, or other big companies, we're small compared. If it really would help big time to rely on such equipment, we would not stand a chance, in this market. Absolutely not. So that's why I'm actually glad that it is quite a big portion of speaker building has a little bit to do also with like instrument building. I mean, why are they still not able to come up with something as good or even better as something which Stradivari or Guarneri or people like that were able to achieve back then?
You have a couple of models, because now we can talk about this for hours. It's really interesting stuff. But I want to give you the chance to talk about your lineup as well. If we separate it in two, you have electronics and you have loudspeakers. Mm-hmm. What struck me, and I didn't see that before, but practically all your equipment is battery powered, except for the active bass in this W22 loudspeaker. Mm-hmm. But let's start with the loudspeakers. You have the really small W5, and then it goes up. What can you tell about all the different models?
Yeah, the W5 was, that idea was born by a friend of me about 10 or 11 years ago, who said, why don't you make something nice for desktop?
Like desktop?
Desktop, like a computer playback desktop situation. And I then did that, and I then realized that it actually can do more than just play on a desktop.
Yeah, it does.
And that actually really altered the company's development to the much better. So there was like, when I launched the 5, it really took like quite a step upwards. And then from the 5, the bigger brother, the 8, and then the 11s and the 13s were born over the next, years.
Yeah.
And the W22 was then started at the 22nd anniversary of the company 3 years ago. And it was absolutely form follows function.
Yeah, it's a beast.
I mean, it's still a small loudspeaker. I mean, it's actually less high than a W11 or 13.
True.
But it's just wider.
Yeah.
Because I chose to use this bass mid-range driver, which is a 28 centimeter, so it has to be wider. And yeah, as I said, this is a purely form follows function. It does not want to please anyone. Also, the famous WAF, the wife acceptance factor, is most likely not as high as with the other models, but it's not supposed to be for everyone.
No,
and
true.
it's really I threw everything I could at it. At the moment, I cannot do a better product in terms of loudspeaker than this.
And then the electronics, because there's something special, especially with the DAC. I was pretty intrigued by it. What can you tell about that?
The main thing which is really special and so far in this form unique to the DAC is that it can do on the fly a down pitching to 432 Hertz, which means that most people know that when there is a concert, the instruments are tuned like the chamber tone. Is it called chamber tone? The A dash.
The A,
at 440 Hertz mostly, sometimes even higher. I think Karajan used to pitch his orchestras up to 445 even, which is high, of course. But it did not always used to be between 40 and 45. No. Especially before World War II, it used to be at 32. So,
but why? Why did they do that? I'm really curious.
I'm personally not sure. No. I believe, and I can understand it if that sounds a little bit like a conspiracy theory or so. Or let's put it the other way around. If you listen to music at normal pitch and then down pitched, and you could now quite nicely observe that with the audience. It makes people react to music in a very different way.
Yeah, true.
The body opens up to the music much easier. I think the other brain half is more triggered than if you listen to music at a higher pitch. It's more like the rational one. I forget if it's the left or the right side. And to put it shortly, music has just a much bigger healing potential. I've had people on my sofa, big guys, strong guys, who listen to a piece of music which they have heard 100 times before, and they have heard it on my sofa in the down-pitched mode, and they cried like a baby.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
And then you can think, well, what's good about crying?
Well, it's healing.
I leave that to everyone to determine what's good about that. But yeah,
we should be more open to that kind of stuff. I mean, guys have feelings too, don't they? I mean, otherwise we couldn't be involved in music as well.
To me too. I mean, that's a sort of like a transformation process.
Absolutely. But then, playing the bad guy for a minute. If you play a CD that is pitched on 440 Hertz and you sample it down, you're not listening to the original anymore.
You actually, I don't quite know in what sense you mean it, but actually you do the same thing as if you have like a record player going, you just put your finger on the platter and just break it a little bit, break it down a little bit. It goes from it just does that.
Yeah, you're transforming
it's just being played slower by 1.28%. It's the way we do it. It's exactly the same data. You just imitate as if the original venue that took place whenever it was recorded, as if they would have tuned it down already. That's what we simulate.
All right.
As we talked before, we don't ditch any data.
No, and that's a big difference, because I think a lot of my viewers also know the Evo 432 from Belgium. And he says he doesn't alter the length of the track, but then you have to do something in the signal and in the data, and you just tune it back and makes the track actually longer. That without ditching data.
Yes. So a 5-minute track becomes 5 minutes and 3.84 seconds.
Yeah, that's not really a lot of difference.
No, but you can. You can still hear it, and that's why we need to have quite a strong memory in the machine. Yeah. So you could theoretically at 24 bits, 192 kilohertz, you could play for 1 whole hour without any interruption. So if you press stop, or if there is no valid data detected at the digital input, it has automatic input detection. If there is no valid data coming, the buffer will be automatically emptied. Yeah. But if you had a piece which takes for so long, so a Keith Jarrett concert times 3, for example, some of those tracks, then you could do that at the high sampling rates for an hour.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a lot of memory.
Yeah.
Amplifiers are battery powered as well. You said something about the duration you can play on the battery, and it strikes me that it's quite long actually. Even those big speakers have a sensitivity of 100 dB, so that's quite high. Yeah. But even with a bookshelf, you have hours of playing.
Yeah, talking of the power amp, which uses, of course, much more energy than, let's say, the DAC or the preamp. It really depends on which speaker you use, on its sensitivity, and on how loud you play, in which big room, of course. But since this amplifier is rather costly, because it's also quite a cost no object device in terms of sound quality and what we threw at it inside the box to achieve that. I would not see it paired with a small bookshelf speakers very often anyways.
Sounds very transparent.
Rather our small AC powered power amp.
There's only one question I have left, because I just thought about it. The W8, I think, had a wood driver unit.
The 11s and the 13s.
Oh, the 11, sorry. This one doesn't. Is there a choice you made specifically for that loudspeaker then? In my knowledge, there's only like 1 or 2 manufacturers on the planet that are able to build those wood cone drivers. I've never seen them before, actually.
Yeah, and one again is in the Far East, and the other one I think is, at least the company is based in Ukraine. Not sure. Ukraine or Kazakhstan, one of the 2. And they simply told me with almost 12-incher, they would not recommend it to do it.
The limit.
The cone is too big to make it in the wood, because the wood is actually very soft. It acts more like a bend mode radiator, so you can really bend the whole thing.
Okay, so it's not stiff.
Not stiff at all.
Okay.
It's very soft.
Yeah.
And this would be too big to make it function really well. Yeah. That's what they said. So I took their advice, and I went for paper, which is very similar, cellulose in both cases.
It's about absorbing the resonances in the unit, I guess, the way it does that.
Yeah, I mean, the paper is derived from wood fibers anyway, so it's very, almost very similar. Yes.
Any future plans you can tell us?
Yeah, we're very busy in terms of bringing on the market a lot of new products, not speakers, but electronics. So there will be this DAC being brought on the market in a small version, in a big version, probably even as an OEM kit.
Oh, wow.
So this down pitching module, to me, is so important what it does for the people, that I want to offer it to as wide as possible audience as possible. Yeah. And so yeah, as a OEM and DIY kit probably. Then a small preamp. The big preamp already is there. Big power amp, a switch.
Oh,
so
really?
the prototype of a network switch will be ready quite soon, and it will be very interesting because we will have up to 10 switches daisy chained in one unit.
We'll talk about it after the interview.
Yeah. Also running on batteries, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, things like that. So that will keep us very busy in the near future.
So there are a lot of plans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in terms of speakers, so with this project here, as I said, I cannot do better at the moment than this.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty good. So no shame there.
Yeah. I mean, it can always become bigger because even here I try to get as much function into as small package as possible. So the form factor should be very attractive still.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not aware of any other speaker that has so much surface area. I mean, two 15-inch woofers and one almost 10-inch or 12-inch bass mid-range in about 110 liters.
It's really stacked with units. True. Yeah, I noticed it as well. But I think it still looks very good. I mean, the finish is sublime, and
Thank you so much for the flowers.
Yes. I thank you for your time because you have
absolutely
a lot more
pleasure.
to do, and we're actually overdue. So thank you, and
Super.
hope to see you soon. Yes. Thanks.